like to give you my thoughts on what happened yesterday with Putin's speech, which was billed as the equivalent of a State of the Union speech in the United States. It was a remarkable speech because it was essentially a not very well veiled threat to the United States, with Putin describing any number of new weapons, supposedly new weapons, which in fact were not new at all because they had been discussed for a long time, even back in Soviet times, in 1960s, 1980s. And in fact, some of them had been discussed in the United States and rejected as not very promising. For instance, the idea of having a nuclear-powered missile was discussed in the United States back in the 60s. The question is, why did Putin need to do that? In my view, the audience that he had in mind was primarily a domestic one, because we know that the Russians are actually a lot more sensitive to that kind of imperialist strongman rhetoric than foreign audiences. But it did have a foreign audience component, again, a threat of sorts. The problem is that it is not very effective at all. At least to me, it was not effective. There was an element of fake news in it. Some of the video that he showed, for instance, a stimulated attack on Florida, was something that had been shown on Soviet television before that. And many of the so-called new technologies were anything but. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but the point is that if you look at what Putin is desirous of, to have the West recognize him as a partner in geopolitical terms, a new Yalta, if you will, that he would like to have his opinion not only consulted, but actually taken into consideration by the Western powers, and ergo the new Yalta concept was not helped by this kind of a saber-rattling. The bottom line is, as Mr. Kudrin, the economic specialist who Putin says is really one of the best minds in the country, he says it would work if Putin had the economy of China. He does not. Russia is a small to medium power with a GDP equivalent to that of Italy and South Korea. And unfortunately, with an economic prospects that are quite a bit worse than those of Italy and South Korea. Russia has undergone a process of deindustrialization, which is affecting its military-industrial complex in a major way. There's American experts that believe that Russia needs up to 75% of its electronics from the West to be able to build a missile. You go to a Russian automobile factory these days and you will see that virtually all the equipment is Western. And it works, but in a period in which, under Western sanctions, a lot of these technologies are no longer available to the Russians, this may actually prove to be a counterproductive, this kind of saber-rattling. So we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think it was a very productive thing on Mr. Putin to do.